In this chapter, we're going to look at some of the mathematics related to owning a small business. In this lesson, we're going to look at revenue, expenses, profit, and loss. Okay, hi everybody. So in this lesson, we're going to look at revenue, expenses, profit, and loss here. Basically, just making sure you're familiar with some of the vocabulary associated with owning a business. Okay, so when you start up a business, you're concerned about revenue. Now, revenue is the amount of money that comes in. Okay, so you provide a good, you provide a service, money comes into you. That's your revenue. But you've also got expenses. Okay, you're gonna have to pay to make your business run here. And we're going to break up expenses into two categories. They can be fixed or variable. So a fixed expense means it's an expense that you can trust is going to be the same every time it comes up. Okay, like a loan payment. Every time you pay that loan payment, it's going to be the same amount. Okay, you can trust that. Whereas variable means changing. Okay, the root word there is vary. Okay, so these are expenses that you don't know before they happen how much they're going to be. So our expenses can be fixed or variable. Now, profit is going to be the difference between the revenue and the expenses here, okay? So I take how much revenue I've got, how much money's came in, subtract my expenses, and then whatever that is left over, that's my profit. Now there are a few different scenarios here. I can have a profit, I can have a positive profit, which means I made money, or I can have a loss, which means I have negative. In other words, more money went out because of expenses than came in due to revenue. Okay, that happens. Break even means the amount of money that came in balanced the expenses. So break even is when revenue is equal to expenses. So there's no profit, but there's no loss as well. Now that's not an ideal situation, but that's better than having a loss. Okay, other factors that might impact that: location, suppliers, how much you charge. Maybe if you got to adjust how much you're charging. Oddly enough, there's a great example of companies out there that they weren't making a lot of profit, but the answer to their problem was increasing what they charge. Now you'd think that increasing what you charge for something might cause less people to buy it, but actually in some cases it has the opposite effect. You increase what you charge for it, all of a sudden people perceive that it's got better value, and they're more willing to buy it because it looks like it's worth more at that point. So it's more valuable to them. You might have to look at your hours of operation, the number of employees. Okay, we hear a lot about the people getting laid off as companies downsize and whatnot. But then at the same time, other companies need to hire because the demand has gotten too high. So you got to look into that. And advertising, always an issue, right? People got to know you're there before you can make money. So anyway, you've got the demonstration here with some questions and the work solutions. So I'm going to jump to the examples and work through those with you. Okay, everybody, let's take a look at this first example. It says Hester has a printing company. Her expenses and revenue for a month are listed in the following table. We want to classify them as expenses or revenue. And for every expense, we're going to classify it as fixed or variable, okay? It's just the expenses there. So, but we don't know which one's which yet, so we don't know which ones we're going to fill in here. So rent. Well, rent is an expense, okay? And it's probably going to be a fixed expense. Okay, you will know how much you're going to spend in rent every month. Business license, that's an expense, and you will likely know the government will set that up there. Now that might change, it might go up kind of on a regular basis, but you're going to know what that is. It's typically going to be fixed here. Employee wages. Now I've worked with enough students to know that sometimes people get confused by this. Students get confused by this because you see yourself as an employee, so you see a wage as an income. That's a revenue, but that's not what we're talking about. You got to put yourself in the position of the owner here. That is an expense. Now, this is debatable. I've had students kind of waffle on this one and kind of argue and debate about this one. This one could be fixed or variable. It kind of depends on the business that you've got going there. So I'll leave it at that. Okay? I mean, if you've got people that come in and they work the same time all the time, the same number of hours, well then yeah, you can rely on your employees' wages being a fixed, predictable expense. But if your business is a little bit more fluid than that and kind of depends on the jobs that you've got available and maybe what the time crunch is to get those down, well, then that might be variable. Okay? So we'll leave that up there for people to decide here. Phone and data bill. Okay, that is an expense. And I threw in there, it's got a fixed rate there, so this is going to be fixed. Tip from a client. Okay, finally, that's revenue. Now, we're not going to worry about fixed or variable revenue here. That's not really the issue there. Utility bill, that is an expense. Now, that's another interesting one here because it really does sort of depend. It can vary a little bit from month to month, but what most people are going to find is that's pretty fixed. Although, in fairness, it does change during the months of the year, but in usually a kind of a predictable way here. You might say variable here, but I think the intention here is that we consider that fixed. Bill for print cartridges, okay, because she's got to buy that, so that is an expense. That is probably going to be variable because it's going to depend on the job that she does. Okay, what she needs, how quickly she runs out of things. Payment from a client, there it is, revenue. Monthly maintenance fee, that is going to be an expense. And, well, it's a monthly fee, so I'm assuming that that's going to be a fixed expense. And then the bill for the paper, that is another expense. And because, again, that is going to be related to the jobs that she does, that is going to be variable. Okay? And so there you go. And I hope that maybe gives you a little bit of clarity or gives you some guidelines for how to think through questions like that. Okay, let's take a look at another question here. Scott has a business in which he makes pizzas that are ready to go and only need to be cooked by the consumer. He delivers these to local grocery stores. His expenses and revenue for 1 month are as follows. Okay, so there they are. So the question we got here is, what is Scott's profit, loss, or loss for the month here? Well, to answer that, we need to classify these as expenses or revenue. I don't need to worry about fixed or variable. I just need to know whether the money's coming in or going out here. So rent, that's an expense. Wages, that's an expense. Sales, that is revenue. Loan payment, expense. Food and ingredients, expense. Utilities, expense. Insurance, expense. Van insurance, expense. Gas for the van, expense. Salary for Scott. That's interesting. That's interesting. Salary for Scott. Now, I want you to understand here that Scott owns this business. Okay, it's his pizza business. The business is paying Scott. Okay, he sets himself up to get an income from the business. So once he's paid himself, anything left over beyond that goes back into the business, okay, to help the business here. So this is actually an expense. That looks a little weird because you think, well, wait a minute, that's money coming in for him. But that's the business paying Scott here. So really, we've got this one big revenue here. So we're going to take the revenue and minus the expenses. So that's going to be 10,000. And then we're going to subtract everything else here, okay? So we're going to subtract the 1,200. We're going to subtract the 3,200. We're going to subtract the 226. Whoops. Not a comma. Not a comma. We're going to subtract the 3,000. We're going to subtract the 150, the 250, the 195, the 225, and then the 2,200. And let's see what we get. Okay. Pull out the calculator here and let's just run that through. So 10,000 minus 1,200 minus 3,200 minus 226 minus 3,000 minus 150 minus, where am I at here? 250, sorry, I just lost track, minus 195 minus 225 minus 2,200. Oh no. Negative $646. Okay, so this is a loss. Now, what would his sales have to be to break even? Well, we lost $646 here, so what he would need to do is sell $646 more. Okay, so it'd have to be $10,000 here plus $646, so $10,646 just to break even in this particular scenario. And there's more to the question here. If Scott can't improve his sales, how else might he break even? Well, everybody, what if you can't improve your sales, if you can't kind of inspire more people to buy, well, then we got to cut expenses, right? So the expenses have to go down. So this might mean firing staff. Okay, this might mean using cheaper product. Okay, in other words, the quality of the pizzas has got to go down a little bit. You know, this could mean a few different things here, but I mean, just to give you kind of an idea of what's going on there, he might take less himself. Okay, maybe he takes a pay cut. So some things to consider as to how you could fix that loss. Okay, so our next question here says, Hannah can rent space for her ice cream stand at $275.50 per month for the year, so every month for the year, or $575.25 per month for the 4 summer months. Now she's trying to decide whether to work all year or only during the summer months. She knows that after all expenses, not including rent, okay, so we're going to have to do that ourselves, she makes a profit of $700 a month in the summer and $150 per month for the rest of the year. So what is Hannah's profit or loss if she operates for the full year? Okay, so she knows that after all expenses, not including rent, she makes a profit of $700 a month in the summer and $150 per month for the rest of the year. And we know that they're considering it to be 4 summer months here. I knew that number was written in here. So her profit or loss here, so we'll just call it profit, is going to be her revenue coming in. If she goes for the full year, then she is going to make $700 for each summer month plus $150 for the 8 other months of the year. But she's going to have to pay $275.50 per month for rent. Now, if she goes all year. If she goes all year, she's getting this rate for the full year. So now, on my calculator, that's going to be 700 times 4 plus 150 times 8 minus 275.5 times 12. Okay, so we're getting $694 as profit for the year. Now, what is Hannah's profit or loss if she operates just during the summer months? Well, just during the summer months, she's going to take in, her revenue will be $700 times 4 for the 4 summer months. She's not working the rest of the year. Now, her rent is different though. Now she's going to pay $575.25. But that's also only going to be for each of those 4 months. And so now, what is she making here? So 700 times 4 times, minus 575.25 times 4. And she's making $499. What would you recommend she do? And explain your reasoning. Now, usually at this point, when I'm going through this in class, this is just a good opportunity for us to talk about it. What should she do? Okay, should she work all year? You know, now look at that. The difference between those two is roughly $200. I mean, is that $200 worth the extra 8 months of labor? I don't know. Hey, that is kind of up to you. This is usually a good question for us to have a little bit of a discussion about. So just think about it. Okay, there's no right or wrong here. It's just something that we would have a good opportunity to discuss. That's it.